Thanks so much, everyone. Let me know if you can't hear me. I will try to talk louder. A little bit more about me. I actually am a journalism professor. That's my primary job at San Francisco State University. And I've been fortunate in the last 2.5 years to work at LinkedIn in the tech space, serving as a trainer. And I've worked with journalists and I work with corporate communicators. Those are my two areas of expertise, and I show them how to leverage LinkedIn. With journalists, I often work with journalists to show them how to do research. So I'm not going to focus much on that today, but feel free during Q&A to ask me any questions, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I am going to ask, how many of you already have a LinkedIn profile? Excellent. And how many of you would like to tell me, it's okay if you don't, no judgment, you don't have a profile yet? Thank you. So I'm going to talk about why you might want to have one. What do you do right now?
My graduate student football staff.
And I'm going to talk about what LinkedIn does for the professionals, and I'm going to talk about why it might be different from some of the other social networks that you're on. The one thing that I would love for you to keep in mind is that our mission at LinkedIn is to make people more productive and more successful at their jobs. And when I talk about all of the things that you can do on LinkedIn, it's with that in mind. Just a few numbers here you have it on both sides. We have about 350 million members worldwide. About 100 million members are here in the United States, and the rest are spread throughout the world. In terms of growth, we have about 2 new members per second. And just to give you an idea of LinkedIn's growth, in 2008, about 7 years ago, we had 32 million members. So today we have 350 million members, and in terms of growth, it's actually happening. And in terms of monthly unique visitors, and that's the number you want to think about when you think about people looking at the content on a monthly basis, we have about 93 million monthly unique visitors. And in terms of students, I wanted to do a little bit more breakdown. I think the big number there is that we have 40 million students. And this would include K through 12, it would include college students, recent grads. That number is going up. In fact, a lot of the new products that we have, university pages, university rankings, you can find out where people, which schools that folks went to and now work at Apple, all through some of our newer products. But the 40 million is one of the biggest numbers there. And when you get right down to it, you're probably on Facebook, you're probably on Twitter, all good things to be on, especially with different goals in mind. The one thing I like to point out to professionals and students on why you would want to be on LinkedIn is when we did mindset studies, so LinkedIn commissioned what we call mindset studies, we found out there's a difference between what we call personal networks, what you might know of as personal networks, and professional networks. And so what we learned with professional networks, people, members, are willing to hear updates from brands. So imagine you have a product or a service, or you're trying to reach out to B2B, B2C. LinkedIn is the appropriate place to be on that site, right, and talking about some of the content that you're doing, some of the stories that you're promoting, some of the services that you have. It's a great place for you to find out about career information, as you know, jobs, I'll talk about that in a moment, and industry trends. Whereas when people are on personal networks, and I don't know if you have this experience, when you're on a personal network, you love hearing information about your nieces, your nephews, your family, right? It's a great place for that. And it's kind of disruptive when you hear some sort of product or promo on that personal network. So with that in mind, I want to show you this very funny, very, very fast video. So I'm going to jump out of this deck portion and come over here.
If you're watching this, chances are good you want to get a job. You want to go from student to rising star, and you want to avoid eating the same meal over and over and over again. Good news, you're in the right place. That's right, LinkedIn. It's not just for top executives. It's not just for old people with heavy briefcases. It's for you, and it's the perfect place for you to start your professional story. Say you want to get a job in New York City. You've never been there before, but that's okay because you have LinkedIn on your side. You start by creating your profile. You give it love because you know it's what recruiters are looking for day and night. It's your resume that never sleeps. It's a flashing neon sign that says, hire me, for the love of all that is good in this world, hire me. Then you start making connections. Alumni working in New York? Yes. Recruiters at top companies in New York? Yes. Your mom's best friend? Yes. You start imagining whose shoes you want to walk in. You think, wow, this is a lot of deep stuff to consider. You shake yourself out of it and start searching for jobs. Whoa, that's a lot of jobs for students. Time to get down to business. You start to tailor your profile. You start applying. You feel empowered, in control, like you should be CEO. That gives you an idea. You look up all the CEOs of all the companies you want to work at. You see one of them went to your university. Then it hits you. You see a clear path from campus to career. You feel like you can see the future. You wonder if you're psychic. Should you start a hotline? No, back to plan A. You keep tailoring and connecting and applying, and before you know it, you start getting responses. First a few, then more, then an interview, and then you're hired. And that's when the real learning begins.
Right. So really quick. So I'm going to talk about 3 different things today that will help you, what I always call reach the goals that you have. Perhaps it's looking for that dream job. Perhaps it's networking with the right people who can set you on your career path. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk about optimizing your profile because, believe it or not, there are things that you can do to optimize your profile so you'll come up higher in search results. And a lot of people don't know this. I work with professionals all the time. Sometimes I work with executives. That's one of the things I do. I'll do personal coaching with executives, and they won't know. So I'll talk about that with you. I'm also going to talk about consuming and sharing content on LinkedIn. And I'm going to show you some stats as to why you might want to do that. And then last, I'm going to talk about telling your story and how you might do that on LinkedIn. So first, profile optimization. Feel free to take notes. There are a couple things that you might not remember. As we know, the brain can only take in so much information, and then all of that other information gets kind of lost because we can only take in so much, so notes might be helpful. Here is a beginner profile. So you see Kate, she has no photo. She's got a title of what she does currently, and she's got a little bit of a summary. So that summary section, how many of you added a summary? So few of you. Okay, excellent. So the summary is important, and I'm going to show you, hopefully we can go live, and I'm going to show you examples of how you can tell your story in the summary. But for now, I will say from a search engine optimization perspective, you definitely want to have a summary of at least 40 words. Gotta have a summary of at least 40 words in order to improve the chances of you being discovered through Google, Bing, Yahoo, and other search engines. Now, the profile strength, if you've ever noticed on your own computer, your own device, however you take it, this is usually, and also everything that I'm talking about will work much better from a laptop or desktop experience. You can do some functions on mobile, but the functionality that I'm going to be talking about is available through laptop, desktop. Okay? So the first thing you'll see on just you will see your profile strength. So I don't get to see that. But if you see beginner, then there are ways to improve it. I'm going to show you how to do that. Again, the reason that you want to go from beginner to advanced or even all-star status, number one, let's say you have a company, you're an entrepreneur, and you want to start a company page. You have to have at least an advanced profile to do that. And then, of course, what I talked about earlier is really showing up higher when someone comes to look for you. People are finding you through search. They're not finding you because of the school you went to or because of your name. They're actually typing in keywords using what we call Boolean strategies. I'm sure that some of you are familiar with that. They find someone who has all the skills they want, and then there's a list, and they have to make a decision. Who are the profiles? Which profiles am I going to look at? So let's see how you can get to what we call all-star status, which is the highest, or even advanced, pretty good. So first you're going to have that first section. You're going to see there professional name, headline, and optimize your location and industry. I am going to focus on your professional headline. The headline is what many of us in the room would consider the title, right? So if you are a student right now, you might say, I'm a student. Or maybe that you're working as an administrative assistant at a particular job right now. What I am going to say is that's just what you do today. It's not what you do overall, it's not who you really are. So, several things I would suggest. Valuable piece of real estate from the algorithm perspective, by the way. The headline can be up to 2 lines. So, if you're in job seeking mode and you are, let's say, a social media guru, and you have skills in content strategy, and you're a writer, you're a producer, you can use all of those keywords in your headline, and I would recommend doing so from an SEO perspective, right? So if someone's looking for a person with these skills, and you start to mention it in your headline, which weighs just a little bit more heavily in the algorithm, you're doing a good job, okay? Now, for some of you who are interested in brand opportunities, branding, so maybe you have a business, maybe there's a service that you do, then you might be interested in taking a look at what we call taglines. So it would be like passionate about investing in people, and I'll show you some examples when we go live. So top section, just remember headline, valuable piece of real estate. And the other thing I would also suggest is if you are known by a certain name, a certain way across social networks, keep it consistent. Make sure that that's how they know you on LinkedIn as well. Okay, so professional photo. We do have some recommendations. Some of these are not discouraged, by the way, but if you do have a friend or you have someone and if you are thinking about investing, I would encourage you to do so. The photo, by the way, using a photo will increase the likelihood of being viewed by 14 times. So what happens is, let's say that you're not using photo for many reasons, good reasons, the likelihood of a recruiter, for example, a recruiter looking at your profile goes way down. So definitely use that. We also recommend shoulder level and above. And I know you've been doing professional headshots, many of you. So good job. I know that when I ended up, actually a professional photographer reached out to me via LinkedIn and said, hey, I could take your photo for free. And I had never done that. I've been really casual, even though I was working at LinkedIn. He did so, and I think within days, I started getting many more emails, or what we call in-mails, to speak at conferences, which is part of what I do for my job, recruiters and others. So it wasn't just looking for jobs, but it was really the opportunity that I needed to take my career to the next level. Okay, how many of you have customized your public profile URL? Excellent. And tell me why you did that. Exactly. So number one, visually, if you customize your public profile URL, it's the URL underneath your photo. And right now there is a jumble of numbers and letters with your name. And you can get rid of the jumble of numbers and letters very easily. I'll show you how. The other reason that you want to customize your public profile URL, any guesses? Yes.
So you can add it to business cards or
Absolutely.
share it with people.
You can add it to business cards, nice and simple. And one more reason. It makes you much more, it will make you easily searchable, not just on LinkedIn, but on Google, being Yahoo and other search engines. So I don't know how many of you have actually done a Google of yourself, right? So when I started working at LinkedIn 2.5 years ago as a 3-month contractor, I pulled, I did Google, and my Facebook account came up pretty high. Not very professional, if you check out my Facebook account. So today, when I do a Google, my LinkedIn account, my very professional identity comes up first. And one of the reasons why is because I customized my public profile URL, making it easier for people to find me, making it easier for Google to find me. Next, your summary. I already talked about the 40 words that you want. What I'm seeing, and when I work with executives and I work with other folks, is we are seeing a really great value in what we call personal first-person stories. So you telling your story about what you're most passionate about. When you think about metrics, we do think it's really helpful. So if you've accomplished something, whether it's a volunteering opportunity that you did over the summer, whether it's something where maybe you helped to get a community group up from 5,000 to 10,000, mention it in your summary. In terms of first person, talk about the things that are not easily regurgitated in other parts of your current resume that you're using for certain job opportunities, and the rest of your profile. It should be unique and different. And I'll show you some examples live. LinkedIn about 2.5 years ago added the ability to add what we call rich media, and all that really means is PowerPoint presentations, videos. Now, I know some of you have probably produced your own video, right, your own work. And so some folks think, well, it's only the video I have produced. However, this is a great place to show video of a company that you're involved in, an organization that you're involved in. So it's a really great branding opportunity to tell a story about things that you're proud of. So it doesn't have to be just your video, PowerPoint presentations that you've worked on, maybe you went to a conference, and you can add the rich media. And we would suggest adding some of the rich media starting in summary and then sprinkling it throughout in your job experience. Did you have a question?
Yeah, can that include writing central and reel?
Absolutely, and your reel is a great place. Yeah. So my 22-page, I don't even know how many, my CV that I need to be, faculty member, how it keeps growing. I actually have a home for it now on my LinkedIn profile. Next, okay, skills. You might have some questions for me, and I'm happy to answer them about skills. You can add up to 50 skills, but one of the reasons that you would want to add skills, things that you're good at, is because it also goes into the algorithm that's used to weigh you as the expert in fill in the blank, whether it's coding, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales. Add those skills so that people can start to endorse you for them. I will say very quickly, if someone has endorsed you, and only your first degree connections can endorse you. So, but let's say someone endorsed you for Flash. That happened to me 2 years ago, maybe less than 2 years ago. I don't really know Flash, so I was able to easily remove it. You can manage your endorsements. You can remove skills that you don't think that you really have, and maybe someone just endorsed you for it. Very easy to do. But I would urge you to add some skills. You can add to 50. So next, you're going to see here, you can add projects, test scores, courses, patents, very heavily by the way, patents, certifications, and volunteering causes. Now, why would this be important for students? And anyone who is hoping to move from one career path to another. Yes?
You don't have enough experience.
Exactly. So job experience, right? Right now it's kind of like, well, what do I put in job experience? And how do I tell people this is my dream job when I haven't actually worked in that particular job? Here's how you do it. You add your projects that you've done here at USC and elsewhere. You add those that are and you add it in the right section, okay? Then okay, I'm not gonna add any test scores, just so you guys know. Won't be adding any test scores, but if you're proud of any of your test scores, you can add that in the right section. Courses. It's another way you can tell your story about the courses that you've taken. So if you are truly interested in marketing or working with a corporate communications team, and yet you haven't had that experience, talk about the courses that you've taken that would make you a true contender for the internship that's coming up or the job that's coming up. If you do have any patents, I would definitely encourage you to list them. They weigh heavily into the algorithm. Certifications. Now, that's something that's happening with a lot of people in the industry, whether they're starting out in their career, or whether they're 20, 15, 30 years in career, they're going back to school, right? They're getting that workshop and they're getting a certification. We have added a section in your LinkedIn profile where you can talk about those certifications. And yes, they help you stand out when you're saying, look, I have taken the social media workshop, I've also done visual storytelling, I've also done some workshops in Photoshop. So even though I haven't worked as a designer at this company, I've done all of this work, and yes, it's being weighed heavily into that algorithm. And then of course, volunteering causes. I know for many of you in the room, you've probably done a lot of volunteer work, probably starting in high school. Yep. So you should list them and be really proud of them. That will again say, okay, this person worked in community service, maybe worked in administration. Again, skills that you would not be able to put anywhere else in your job experience. And last, I would say, is make yourself contactable. Now, the idea there is that LinkedIn does not recommend, believe it or not, we do not recommend connecting with everyone in the world. We actually have a policy against open networking. Lions. Okay? So LinkedIn is all about quality over quantity. We do not recommend that you go, I know that, there are celebrities on Twitter who are really proud. They've got millions of followers. And Vine, I see that if you've got millions, you're Vine famous. LinkedIn is not about that. If you have 50 quality connections, you're good to go. And your connections should be quality. They should be people who are going to help you in your career, people who know your work, people who can vouch for you. So it may not be the best thing to try to connect with someone, or and I would say this. So if you find someone who you think might help you, right, in your career, but they don't know you yet, it might be awkward to send them an invitation request. So we actually don't recommend that. And I'm going to talk about some other strategies that you can do. But for you, if someone gets to your profile and they're like, I really want to talk to you about this opportunity, it'd be awkward, right? You go, well, I don't know you. I want to connect. So what I would encourage you to do is add a work email address. I actually have my work phone number because I am open to a possible opportunity, So that's what I would do. Make yourself contactable. All right, so those are ways to optimize your profile. And at the end of the day, you will see a headshot that is done by a professional. I know that some of you got that done here. You're going to see now, remember I talked about taglines, right? So you're going to notice I do two different things, right? And I was, okay, how do I marry that? How do I bring that all together? So I wrote Corp Comms Manager and Journalism Professor, and this is the tagline, who loves helping people achieve their dreams. So it's all encompassing. Think about all of the different parts of who you are and really strive to do that in your headline. Okay? Next, you're going to see that this is where, this is my public profile URL, and notice the jumble of numbers and letters are gone. Now, I'm going to say for many of, okay, and maybe someone can tell me if this has happened to you. Did you try to customize your public profile URL? And by the way, if you're doing it now, thumbs up for you. Did you try doing it, and was your name still there? Was your name taken? Yeah.
Oh, my name is still there.
Excellent. All right. So I would encourage you to jump on that and do it quickly because for some of you, if you have a name that's somewhat common, it's probably already gone. If it's already gone, here's what I suggest. What's your name?
Yes.
What's your last name? So when you type that in, it might be gone. But if it's not, if it is, what we suggest is adding, like in my case, Yumi Wilson 1, keeping it nice and simple for the search engine to work, right? Or Yumi L. Wilson, no punctuation and no space. Okay. All right, so what we also learned is if you want to increase profile views, you can do several things. 12 times more views if you can add a second position to your job experience, 13 times more views by listing your skills, and 14 times, as I mentioned earlier, by including a photo. So Connie Chan Wang also went to USC, and she's our social media lead at LinkedIn. There's wallpaper, which is now available to all members, that you can actually kind of start to tell your story. So notice how Connie has inspire. So it's really another opportunity for you to tell your story, or maybe you're promoting a brand, promoting your work, the other work of an organization. You can use that wallpaper. And her summary, let's take a look. So I'm going to just read it because I think the text is pretty small. I'm living the dream at LinkedIn. I lead corporate social media strategy at LinkedIn, which includes founding and managing our social media center of excellence, where I coordinate a team of rock star social media managers around the world. I'm the chief editor of the LinkedIn corporate blog at bloglinkedin.com, and I'm responsible for growing and managing LinkedIn's corporate social media channels, including LinkedIn, obviously, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and more. I also oversee our member stories program, where I work with LinkedIn members to help them share inspiring stories of career transformation. So notice how Connie is really telling a very personal story about what she does, but it doesn't really sound and look and feel like any part of a traditional resume for sure. And it doesn't really repeat what I might see later in job experience. It's really a chance for someone who, let's imagine, a recruiter, 93%, this is the latest stat, I'm not sure if it's 100% accurate now, but the latest stat I saw was 93% of all recruiters use social media to find the best candidate. And most of those recruiters use LinkedIn. So for Connie to kind of tell this really personal story about what she's really proud of, she's actually helping for that recruiter to say, I'm going to spend more time here scrolling down and checking out her job experience. It's almost like an 11-second elevator pitch, right? So this is how I would encourage those of you who have not yet built out your summary. This is way beyond 40 words. That's the other thing. I did the question is, should I go to, is this too long? Absolutely. Absolutely not. This is a place where people can stop and really get to know you. And it's as Brian Kramer. How many of you are in social media? Okay, so you know there's a guy, social media guru, and his name is Brian Kramer. And he says it is not B2B, it is not B2C, it's H to H. When we are on social media, we're connecting with humans. It's human-to-human interaction, right? And that's probably why we're on Instagram. That's probably why we're on social networks. We're connecting. And anytime it starts to feel like business or promotion, we kind of click out, right? We don't even click. So Connie's done a really great job. And remember that rich media I talked about? So 7 steps to build your brand with social media, how to use LinkedIn to build your career. These aren't necessarily stories written by Connie, but she's promoting things that she believes in. And I will give you a little tip, secret, this isn't often talked about, but most recruiters are looking for passive candidates. So that means be sure to talk about what you're proud of, what you're doing right now. I would even encourage you not to use words like looking for a job, really hoping to take the next move. What they want to see, they want to see people who are passionate about what they're doing now, whether it's a volunteering experience, whether it's a project that you're working on at school. They want to see that you're happy where you are now, and then all of a sudden people start coming to you. And just to how to edit your public profile URL, underneath your photo, you're going to see the word edit, or you might see a pencil. You click on that. You're going to pull up this, and all you do is click on the pencil again. And again, if you're in the room right now, please join me in doing so. And once you do that, you just type in your first and last name, no punctuation, no space. Hopefully it's still there. It's there for you. And you're done. All right, so that's optimizing your profile. And feel free to reach out to me later. I do have some time where I can work with folks. My email address is ywilson@linkedin.com. See, it's just a note-taking. I'm a professor, so I'm just saying you're going to take that down. I'll tell you a little later, again, to remind you my email address. But for now, I want to talk about content on LinkedIn. So I know that many people think of LinkedIn, we've been around for 12 years as the job board, right? So if you're looking for a job, sure, I'm going to go to LinkedIn. But if you're not looking for a job, why would I be on LinkedIn? And here's what I like to tell people. We actually have 7 times more page views with our content than our jobs. So executives, recruiters, business professionals, educators, we're all coming to LinkedIn to view the content. And what is that content? So we have SlideShare, which LinkedIn acquired, I'm going to say about 3 years ago. LinkedIn acquired SlideShare. It's where you can post your PowerPoint presentations. How many of you are in sales or planning to go in sales? All right, I like this group. But anyway, if you were, you can do what we call lead generation. All right, good. I'm teaching a couple terms now that I had to learn when I got to LinkedIn. But apparently lead generation is the idea that when people are interested in what you're doing, you would then be able to capture some of their information so you can reach out to them later. For sales folks, for marketing folks, for people who are in the business of getting those leads so they can build a business empire, SlideShare is a great product where you can share content. We have about 2 million groups on LinkedIn. Some are very active, some are not. You can start your own group and start talking about things that you want to talk about. We have a news aggregator, which LinkedIn acquired, I would say about 2.5 years ago. And what Pulse does, it aggregates content coming in from 1.6 million publishers who have a LinkedIn share button on their homepage. So people like the New York Times, ABC, CNN, Mashable, TechCrunch, Business Insider all have the LinkedIn share button. And what happens is Pulse takes all that content in, helps to aggregate it, and when you're on your homepage, you see some of that great content. Pulse also aggregates about the content of what we call influencers. How many of you are following any influencers? Who are you following? Ariana Huffington, and what does she do?
She works with the Huffington Post.
Exactly.
She's a big deal.
That's right, she is a big deal. Ariana Huffington of HuffPo. And anybody else following anyone? Influencers? We have people like Richard Branson. I think the latest number was 7 million followers. Richard Branson of Virgin. We've got Bill Gates. Barack Obama, when he was running the second time, he became an influencer. So we have about 500 very influential people writing content. What I'm going to talk about, step 3, is that now we've opened up the platform so you and I can write great content, and become what we call a thought leader, or, lack of a better term, somewhat influential in the industry and share the expertise that we already have. So these are all forms of content that are available on LinkedIn. LinkedIn for Corporate Communications is a group that I started about a year ago. So one of my challenges was when they said, hey, you're doing a great job on LinkedIn for journalists, let's start reaching out to corporate communicators. And I'm thinking, how do I reach out to corporate communicators? How do I let them know, here's what I do, I have webinars, I travel, how do I do it? I started a LinkedIn group. Came up with a name, I did my research right, so I found out what groups are already, they already have corporate communicators in their title. Obviously it helps that LinkedIn is in that title as well. But the idea was I would start posting content in the group so that other like-minded individuals were like, oh, there's a corporate communications group. Oh, she offers a webinar. I could sign up for it. Within a month or so, corporate communicators from Pinterest, Wells Fargo, Levi Strauss, and many other Fortune 500 companies joined the group. So that group is now run by one of my colleagues, and it continues to grow, and we do have a monthly webinar now. So that's an idea. And what I loved is I always had a hunch that because I was engaging in groups, so not just going to LinkedIn and building out my profile and saying, hey, look at my profile, isn't it great? No, I went to LinkedIn and I started to engage in discussions through the groups, for example. And what I found out, and this was a stat that came out, I'd say about 6 months ago, is when you engage in groups, you get 4 times more views to your profile. And that's key, right? Because if you want people to start paying attention to you and start discovering what you're good at and maybe offer you the right career opportunities, the right speaking opportunities, engaging on LinkedIn is incredibly important, not just building out your profile. And this is Pulse. So when you go to Pulse, you're going to see your news on the top, and this is what would pull up. It's going to be content that you can choose. I'm in higher education, so I follow the higher education channel. Last count, I think we had about 26 channels. So you can follow certain channels, and what happens is that content that comes in your feed on homepage will be delivered because, Yumi's interested in social media. So you can use that Pulse aggregator to choose the kind of content you want. You'll see top posts there. And just going back, you can also discover to find out which influencers you might want to follow and so on. So as I mentioned earlier, it's all about quality, it's not about quantity. So when you build a quality network on your feed on homepage, you're going to start to see content that's relevant to you. And that's the key, right? So you don't want to spam people and you don't want people to spam you. So you can see here, right, what they suggest is get inspired by your network. The reason I wanted to pull this slide and show it to you is, again, the idea is if you build in your profile and you're hoping that people discover you just based on your profile, but you're not engaging and you're not liking and sharing and commenting on the people that you admire, and you're not following the company pages, or you're not engaged in groups, when you do go for an ask, whether it's simple as, hey, can you introduce me because I really want to work for this organization or this company, and kind of think, wow, you came out of nowhere, right? You haven't, I just wrote a blog post on LinkedIn and you didn't like it, you didn't read it, you don't know what I'm doing. It's that share and like it. It's going back to the Brian Kramer model, right? And it's probably what you already do on other social networks. It's how do we find ways to connect with people when we don't want anything from them? And this is one way to do it. Going through the feed, maybe daily, maybe once in a while, and taking that time to like and share the work that your network's doing. And again, these are just some of the influencers. All right, so typically the way that you share on LinkedIn is through what we call personal. Yes, absolutely.
Sorry, I just wanted to know, where do you get access to post the actual thing? I typed it in LinkedIn and search and couldn't find it.
The LinkedIn member publishing platform.
Yeah.
So you're talking about that you want to post a long form post?
No, post.
Oh, post. So when you see interests,
Yeah.
hover on interests.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, and I'll go live. So when you have questions, I can work with you. Thank you for asking that. So normally what you do is you go to homepage, right, and you will share what we call a personal status update, very similar to other social networks. And you could share a photo, right? So today I might take a picture before you guys leave. Maybe do a selfie. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. But I would share a photo of, hey, I was here at USC today and got to talk about personal branding. And that's a personal status update. That's a way to stay connected to my network, let them know what I'm working on. I could share a file if I wanted to. So that's how it looks. Oh, and the other thing is when you go to share, you want to try to be conscious of how you're sharing it. We give you several options. You can share with everyone, meaning the first, second, and third degree connections in your network, so the potential to reach all of those folks. You could just share with your connections, much more private, or you could share with everyone in Twitter. I am going to recommend from a personal branding perspective, especially when you're on the lookout for the next opportunity, is to share with everyone and tweet it out at the same time. On LinkedIn, we make it really easy for you to do that. Now, the reason that you would want to tweet out something that you're sharing is because not everyone comes to LinkedIn as much as I do, right? And so you want to ensure that, okay, I've shared this, I want people to see it, I'm going to tweet it out because some of my followers are going to see that, come back to LinkedIn, and this thing called trending, which is like the virality effect on LinkedIn, happens when connections start to share and like a post. So it's really important to make sure that other folks see it. And you can keep tabs on your professional brand very easily now. We've provided some new services. So you can see how you can, if you're liking and sharing, you'll see your recent activity. You will see how many people viewed your profile. It's one of our most popular features. How many of you checked that out? Yeah. And we've got some great rankings with a little bit of gamification going on. 69 views on your update, what makes a truly great product, so you can see what resonates with your connections, and it's all there. And again, it's building your profile, step one, but keeping engaged with your network and growing your network, meeting the right people on LinkedIn is step two. I had this question come up, so I thought I would just say that if once you look at your recent activity and then you realize, I didn't want to share that, I didn't want to like it, I don't want other people to see it, you'll see that word delete on the left, very faint gray. You can delete your recent activity. So if that happens to you, you can delete it if you want. We talked about building your network. There are some people that, this is an appropriate place for you to connect with your professors. I love it when my students connect with me here, and yes, some of them ask me for a letter of recommendation. LinkedIn makes it easy for me to write a letter of recommendation for my students. So this is the perfect place to connect with professors. Great place to connect with people who share an affinity. Maybe they're in your industry. I know for journalists sometimes they don't want to, they're worried about what their competition will see. So you do have to keep that in mind because your the people you connect with can actually see your connections. So we've got some strategies for that, but you want to think about that. And when you get the suggestion from people you may know, the algorithm is working in such a way they're like, oh, look, you have something in common with this person. Do you want to connect with them? I will say one thing. I would not do a blanket invitation to everyone in the world to connect with because you're trying to build your numbers, because LinkedIn monitors the number of rejections that one gets, and if you're sitting there just inviting tons of people, all of a sudden you'll get a warning, and then you could actually be prevented from sending invitation requests. So again, just because our policy is against open networking. Last, telling your story. Last thing I want to talk about. So we've got this new member publishing platform. It's now rolled out to all of our members worldwide. And what it allows you to do is to tell your story in long form. What I talked about was the personal status update, kind of nice and short, maybe a photo. Now you can actually blog on LinkedIn. And why you might want to do that is if you're an expert, whether it's through education or a combination of education and experience, why not talk about it on the LinkedIn platform? Here are some of the things. So for example, so you've got your updates, that's how they look on the right, and then on your posts, they look a little like this. We created a template that's easy to use. I'll show you in a moment. And it's very easy. So the same place that you would go to share an update or upload a photo, you'll see publish a post. Once you're there, what we found out is adding visuals definitely increases views. We know that across social media. Visuals. So what we did is we created a template that encourages you to add an image right up on the top. Then you're going to see that you can write a headline, again from an SEO perspective, use the keywords that are trending, whether it's on Twitter, whether they do a little newsjacking. Familiar with that term? newsjacking. So the idea is, okay, this is a hot topic today. Why don't I jump on that bandwagon? Talk about it from my expertise, my perspective. Okay, so that's your headline. Got a few tools to make it a little easier. Start writing, and well, I didn't show you on the left. You can delete, save, or publish. So if you're not quite ready to publish, you can save it, take a look at it, maybe get a friend to do a little copy editing. And the nice thing about when you blog on LinkedIn, it shows up as part of your professional profile record. It is found right underneath your photo and on your profile. So that means that I don't have to go searching for the long form post that you've done. I can find out, oh, she's talking about breaking stories with LinkedIn or the alumni tool. So that becomes a part of your expertise. What to write about, what works on LinkedIn. These are best practices based on what we found through beta testing, anecdotal work, and some statistics. But what we found is when you share your observations, your first-hand knowledge, and that can really start at this level, your education, project that you worked on, that's what resonates with others. Because remember, the first thing I said is people want to be more productive and more successful. So if you can help them do that, they're really open to hearing and reading your posts. Oh, the other thing I should say is, some of our influencers are really successful, right? They're CEOs, people like Richard Branson. Believe it or not, the posts that do better are the ones where the CEO of a successful company is talking about the time that he failed. Success and failure. So it's not always going, hey, I'm great, I'm wonderful, let me tell you about all the wonderful things that have happened to me. How does that help me, right? How did you overcome those obstacles? How did Steve Jobs? I mean, not that I watched his graduation speech that he did at Stanford, and if I could have encouraged him, if you were right here, I'd love to have him write about when he dropped out of college, and that became a pivotal moment in his career. It's those moments we can all stop and say, really, you did that, and look at all the success that you had later. It's how we learn and how we grow. And then the newsjacking thing I talked about earlier is when in doubt, turn to the news. So if you're thinking about, okay, what should I write? I really do want to write on this, a post on LinkedIn. Turn to the news, see what's happening, headlines via Twitter, via Facebook, and other social networks. We also learned that images really work well. You can add a cover image. We would also encourage within the post that we embed images or YouTube videos. You can embed SlideShare presentations as well. So the more visual that story can be, better chances that people will continue to read it. If you are struggling to find an image because you haven't taken those photos yourself, we do recommend using Flickr's Creative Commons. So these are things that if you're worried about copyright issues, which we should be, right? So you can go to Flickr's Creative Commons, do a search, and find images that might pertain or be relevant to the story you're working on. And always attribute. So as we're learning, as we're growing, what we've seen, and journalists are definitely checking out the posts. So if you have posted, maybe it's a blog that you did for another website, maybe something you did on another social network, be sure to attribute. Let the folks know that who are going to read on LinkedIn that it was posted elsewhere. If you are borrowing content from other sources, be sure to give credit where credit is due. Folks are checking that out. So that's the deck. I talked about optimizing your profile. I talked about consuming and sharing content on LinkedIn, and then also telling your story in the member publishing platform. With that, I'm going to go live, but for now, do you guys have any questions for me as I go live? Yeah.
Could you talk about the recommendations feature
Absolutely.
and how useful that is and sort of helping with your showing up in results and if people really weigh those seriously?
So LinkedIn recommends having 3 letters of recommendation. We do. It weighs heavily. They're different from skills endorsement. So if you were to look at my profile here and scroll down, and by the way, if you're ever wondering like which sections do I not have on my profile, LinkedIn will let you know, Yumi, you don't have any test scores, and we already talked about that. I won't be having any test scores, but I could add courses, right? So as I scroll down, oh, the other thing I want to mention is if there's something that you're really proud of and it is not in the order that the profile is not in the order that you want it to, you can actually reorder your profile. So notice how I brought my volunteering experience. something that I was really proud of, and I put it actually above my job experience, so I could move that around, switch it to something later. So letters of recommendation, we recommend having 3, and what's so nice is, so the job that I currently had, and actually let me look at a job the contract job that I had when I started. Okay, so when I got hired at LinkedIn, I got hired for 3 months to be a community manager. And I wanted to continue working, right, at LinkedIn. And so how do I do that? One of the things is I really knew that the LinkedIn profile was important, right? And it was important to get that support and those recommendations, because here I am trying to convince folks at LinkedIn, I'd love to work here longer than 3 months. How do I do that? So one of the things that I would do, and I would encourage all of you to do, and I know this is the most uncomfortable thing, is to go up to people that you know and who know your work and ask them for a letter of recommendation. So what happens is once they write you a recommendation, it goes right in that position that you currently have or you've had in the past, and it starts to become one of the only areas on your LinkedIn profile that's third-party verification. That's why it's important, because everything else is self-reported, right? I can say I'm a CEO of a successful company, I have a small business, I can go on and on about myself. But the only places for third-party verification are letters of recommendation and your endorsement of skills. So 3 letters, I would encourage you to reach out to people.
Can you talk a little bit about curating your profile? Because I know that there's a lot of areas where you can put a lot of information about the work that you've done or the experiences you've had. In terms of what you know about the most successful profiles, how do you curate down and really tell the right story?
Okay, so I want to show you a student who would love to be in broadcast. I believe she's about to graduate. It's from San Francisco State University, and I did a presentation for the broadcast students at SF State. Slow. Okay, so this is Sheree, and the formatting looks a little off. I'm in Chrome. Okay, so I'm just going to keep it here. So Sheree, in terms of curating and creating kind of the image that she wants to portray in the dream job that she wants to have, she chose a photo that represents the industry she wants to work in. So that would be a great step. In terms of experience, right now she's doing internships. She doesn't have that first-time job, so that's how she led. So in terms of curating and kind of positioning yourself as the person that she wants to be hired by a major television station. I'm sure San Francisco, that's a big market, so most likely it'll be a different market, but she lists that experience first. So she has reordered her profile, so it doesn't start with the natural place that I think most students do, which is education. The other thing that she does, and you can't really see it from this particular view of the profile, is, and this is also what I would encourage, I know that people list their jobs and they'll say, okay, well, I worked as an editorial assistant at a TV station, so you will know what that means. We will not know what it means. We will not know what you specifically did unless, going beyond the summary, when you get to job experience, when you talk about your job, again, SEO, talk about the things that you do at that particular job. Rely not on the title that you currently have. Titles mean very little, and titles change. The title that you have at one newspaper or one news organization or one company is completely different from the title that someone had elsewhere. So take 2 to 3 lines with each job position to write what it is that you do and what you're particularly proud of. And other sections that are really, really important in your profile and things I update frequently is I would add the projects that you're working on at USC or elsewhere in terms of your education, projects as you do them, as you complete them. There is a place you'll see on the left, and I'm just going to get out of not now here. So on the left, we realized that, and I don't know if this has happened to you, so you start to update your profile. And you say, okay, well, I'm going to increase the likelihood of being viewed, so I'm going to add a second position, something I had 3 years ago. Has this happened to anyone in the room? You added a position that you had a long time ago, and then people start congratulating you for it? All right, yeah. So it's happened. And so what you can do, be sure to hit no. Notice how I have it on no, and I'm tweaking my profile all the time. So what I would say is, currently by default, it's set on yes. So I would turn it off, hit no. Oh, and the other thing I haven't told you about, let me just finish the idea of all the, the other thing I want to say is, sometimes you work in jobs that don't necessarily relate to what you do or where you want to be hired. I want to encourage you to add that. You know, the algorithm's taking all these different things. So, you know, I was Group X instructor at 24-Hour Fitness, and yeah, you would think that, well, it doesn't have much to do with communications or PR or journalism professor. But I added it early on as a contractor, and what it does is it gives people a full, well-rounded view of who you are. And honestly, the work that you do in some of the jobs that you don't want anymore, or maybe not as lucrative, they give the recruiter and others a sense of, oh, she can do this, she can, and actually, to me, the 24-Hour Fitness represented training, ability to train, ability to teach. It really is kind of the core, what I believe I do well. So I would encourage you to add all different parts, all jobs that you've had as part of your profile. Yes?
So going back to groups,
Yep.
Can a group publish a blog post? And do you recommend that?
So as a member of a group, so are you an administrator or moderator of a group?
No, not yet.
Okay. So in groups, it's really there just for discussion. I call it a two-way street. So even though you have great content, I would not go to that group and say, hey, check out my great content. I would go to it and ask a question. Questions work really well in groups. So the post that you can publish right now, if I go home, right now, individuals can write long-form posts, can blog, not companies. So example is, if I went to Apple, the company page. So Apple has a company page. See if I can get there pretty quickly. All right, so as that's pulling up, there's an administrator who runs the Apple company page. But you cannot post a long-form post as a company page administrator. What we really hope with the LinkedIn platform is that individuals tell their own stories, their first-hand experience. Now, what we have seen is companies, I worked with Symantec, I always pronounce that incorrectly, but what they did is they enlisted some of their software or their bloggers who are already posting, for Symantec, and they had them start posting on LinkedIn specifically. And yeah, my email, if you need to go, is ywilson@linkedin.com. Not quite sure what happened with our visual. And of course, the Apple page pulled up. So yeah, if you have to go, again, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Sorry, so what was the question? Sorry. Okay, perfect. So just really quickly on the company page, when you go to a company page, what I think is really, really helpful is the thing here on the left, how you're connected. Anytime you go to a company page on LinkedIn, you're going to see your first, your second, and your third degree connections or group members. So that's another reason I would join groups. Join groups because you can actually connect with people or message people for free. Yes.
I think a lot of people probably have the same question, but as we know, there's the organizations tab, part of LinkedIn, which gets kind of fuzzy because it's kind of, for me, an between experience and volunteer work.
Yes.
So I know a lot of the experience that I would list under an organization is credible experience and not just, like, oh, I'm a member of some club, but it's actually like I have, a reasonable, respectable position within the organization.
Right.
So how do you, what's the purpose of the organization tab, and do you suggest we use it, and in what capacity?
So I think if you've done work for them and you consider a job experience,
Yeah.
do you?
Yeah, because one of them is let's say vice president of the student organization that actually happens to be a nonprofit organization.
So to me, the volunteering organization experience is truly, to me, where you would say, this is what I do for free, and I'm doing it because I'm, helping an organization. However, if you gained skills, right? You will see when I scroll down here, I'll just do it again.
Because I was almost thinking of deleting my organizations tab myself.
So when I was an intern, that's how we all started, right? We do internships and we hope to get discovered by larger companies and more companies. I have that under job experience. So when you value and when you think of it as job experience and here are the skills I learned and gained and here's the work that I did, I would encourage you to put it under job experience. Organizations, I think, is a chance for you to say, here are the organizations I'm involved in, but if you've done really good work, I would go ahead and list it here. All right, I am going to let you guys go. If you guys have questions, I'll be around for a couple of minutes.